Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me as always is my co-host, Austin Davidson.
Heyo.
It's Season 3, Episode 27. It is Wednesday, August 15th, and the Steelers have the Week 2 preseason game against the Green Bay Packers coming up tomorrow night. But before we get into that game, a few notes to discuss. First and foremost, Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger left practice early after falling and hitting his head on the turf at practice on Tuesday. The protocol is considered precautionary, and he's not believed to have a concussion. But what do you think about this? It's still got to be at least somewhat concerning.
Sorry. I was never really worried. Even if he was concussed, I feel like concussions don't go past 2 weeks. And even if it went to 3 weeks, he'll still be ready game one. So I wasn't really worried. I mean, he needs to knock off some rust in the preseason, maybe get like 2 snaps, 4 snaps, 1 drive. But I wouldn't have been super worried about it, even if it was a concussion and not precautionary. What do you think about it?
Now, let me say that I don't believe that he is concussed. If he was, then this would be a lot more of a bigger deal to me. And I understand that most concussions are generally a 1 to 2 week thing, but concussions are still very scary. And given his history, it's something that should definitely be taken seriously. I mean, Pittsburghers are going to remember another athlete who had his career threatened by a concussion in recent years, and that being Sidney Crosby, who only played in 8 games out of a 122-game stretch between 2011 and 2012 after suffering 2 concussions in a 4-day span that caused him to miss all those games. So I guess it's still scary to me to think about it, and Roethlisberger it seems like he's fine, and again, it's just a precautionary measure, but it's another reminder to me that if he goes down for a long period of time, as is the case with most NFL teams that have good quarterbacks, their seasons are, for the most part, over with. So that being the case, it got me thinking about this, Austin. We never did our I know we didn't do a game-by-game result kind of thing, but maybe now would be a good time to talk about what we think the Steelers' record is going to be this year. And I think you and I both agree that the Steelers are going to take a step back because the Steelers' schedule is a lot harder. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think this schedule is much harder because playing the NFC South, 3 of those teams are playoff teams last season, so that's pretty rough right there. But I think the Steelers are going to win 11. They have a really tough schedule this year compared to last year, as you said, and I can't see them only losing 3 games again. I could see them losing to the Falcons, Jags, Patriots, Saints, and Ravens once. So that would be 5 losses and 11 wins. What do you think? How do you think the Steelers are going to fare this year?
I'm somewhere between 11 and 12 wins. I don't know. Let's put it this way. The Steelers are going to need to start off hot early on because most of their easy, quote-unquote, easy games are early. So they play 6 games before their bye week in Week 7. They're at Cleveland and Cincinnati, and they're at Tampa Bay, and then they host Kansas City, Baltimore, and Atlanta. I think the only game on that schedule that should be really tough is the game against the Falcons, which they're home. They should have a good chance to win. So there's a possibility the Steelers open up 4-2, 5-1, even 6-0. After that, you've got some tough games. You've got games at Baltimore, home against the Panthers, at the Jaguars, at the Broncos, which is tough. You're hosting the Chargers, which is tougher, but that's not super tough in my opinion. You're going to Oakland, which the Steelers typically don't fare well on the West Coast, at New Orleans, and then at New England too. Those are all very tough games. I think the Steelers win a good amount of those, but you're talking about a lot of flip-flop games where you could just be flipping a coin. I think it's certainly possible the Steelers lose a couple of those, so I don't know. I'll give the Steelers 12 wins this year just because I didn't want mine to be the same as Austin's just because you did go with 11 wins. So I'll go with 12 for that in that case. But if the other question I have for you is how many games would Roethlisberger have to miss for this season to be considered, or for it to be really kind of a hit the panic button kind of thing?
Probably 3 or 4, because actually the AFC North is just a terrible division. The Bengals I'm not afraid of. The Browns might be better, but I'm not afraid of them. Like, they went from 0 to 5 wins. Like, congratulations. The Ravens are the only scare, but like the Ravens just look like an 8-8 team to me again. Just I don't know. I feel like the Steelers could be without Ben for five games. I'm gonna go with a high 5 games, and it not matter because the AFC North is so trash. Like I mean, also since the first 6 games are like the easiest stretch, I think I could believe in Landry Jones to at least get 3 of those, 3 out of the 5 in the first 5. So I think he could miss 5, and the Steelers would be okay. What do you think?
Yeah, I originally thought 2, but then again, all that matters really for the Steelers if their season is over or not is if they make the playoffs. It's not about getting, if the Steelers want to get home field advantage or a first round bye, he probably can't miss more than 1 or 2. But if you're talking about making the playoffs, you're right. I mean, I actually think the Bengals might be the worst team in that division. Is there really any scenario you see the Steelers winning less than 4 games in the division? I think 5 is the number they're going to be shooting for.
Yep, they should be sweeping the Bengals without a doubt, and they should get both wins against the Browns, but I mean, maybe they'll surprise them in game 1, because the Browns have gotten close in like the past 2 years. Always gotten close, but no avail. And I always just kind of expected them to lose to the Ravens once. Obviously, last year they went 6-0 in the division, so that didn't happen. But they should basically get 5 or 6 wins. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you're getting 5. Let's just say 4 to 6 wins right there. So we'll call it 5, and then you need like another 5 to definitely make the playoffs. Because I mean, I suppose it's possible maybe Lamar Jackson comes in and lights it up, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think more likely you're looking at a Ravens team that's right around where they've been the last few years. I can't see them winning more than 10 games. I can't see them winning more than 10 games, which I think is a real stretch. I think that's really tough. Because the thing about it is the Steelers have a tough schedule, but the rest of the AFC North does too. They've got. I know the Bills were a playoff team last year. They're not very good though. They also have an easy early schedule. They're at Tennessee. They play the Panthers, or in Carolina. They host the Saints. At Atlanta, at the Chiefs, at the Chargers. That's not an easy schedule either. So I mean, I don't know. The way I think it breaks down is if the Steelers can get 10 wins, they should win the division. So I guess when it comes down to it, that means about 4, 5, or 6. So I think you have it right on the money, Austin. I think you have it about as perfect as it could be. And it also depends, like what games can Landry Jones win. And I think you know as well as I do that we would trust him to win games against most of the division, and we trust him to beat teams like the Chiefs, but not like the Patriots or the Saints or even the Panthers or something like that.
Hey, but not too long ago, Landry Jones came in against a really tough Cardinals team that we thought would be a really bad loss because the Cardinals at the time looked really good, and Landry Jones came in and lit them up, and I think the final score was like really weird. It was like 25-12. So Landry Jones can even beat better teams. I remember that game, Martavis Bryant led the team in receptions. In receptions too. So, I mean, you never know. Maybe Landry Jones will surprise us.
Yeah, you're right. That was actually his debut. I think Jones had you're right. It was a weird final score. It was 25-13. Michael Vick's last NFL game too. Fun fact. I think. But yeah, Landry Jones 8 of 12, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not bad at all. Yeah, you're right. The Cardinals were. I think they were like an NFC powerhouse at the time. But. That's absolutely true. He didn't even play that well or that badly 2 years ago against the Patriots. You remember that? I think that might have been, I think that was actually the first game that we recapped on this show, wasn't it?
I thought we recapped the Baltimore Ravens game first, but maybe I'm not.
Oh, wait a minute. I can't. All I know is that it was right around then. I know for sure we talked about the Ravens game, but I think the Patriots game was the week before that. So we were probably talking about it before we actually did it. That's probably what it was. But
My memory's too bad for that. I'll just shake my head and agree with you because my memory is so bad.
Well, that's something I'm gonna check after the show because I don't think he played that badly against the Patriots. But in any case, we got way off tangent. Let's get back to Steelers training camp, which technically broke yesterday, at least as far as the public practices go. They did have a private walkthrough session today. They're probably already on the way to Green Bay because they have the game tomorrow. So they're flying up to Green Bay, Wisconsin, probably right any time right now. It's about 5 o'clock Eastern time. So I'd have to imagine they're on their way now. But so we're through the rookie mini camps. We're through OTAs. We're through official team mini camps. We're now through training camp. We're through one preseason game. And after tomorrow, we'll be through two. And with only two preseason games left, I guess how much is really up for grabs in the final two preseason games? The coaches have seen a lot from these players in the past few months and past few weeks even. Is there really that much more that's left to be determined? Or is there maybe some things that we don't know that we still believe could be up in the air?
I think there's still a few roster spots still up for grabs and a couple starting spots that may shift. One of the biggest ones is a huge wide receiver battle that has happened for the last one or two spots, and that is going to come down to the very last preseason game in my mind. Then that last cornerback spot in my mind is still contested between Brian Allen and Cody Sensabaugh. After that, this is probably something that's not going to happen. I wrote it, and then I kind of don't, but I wrote it just in case. Keon Adams might have to fight Ola Adeni for a spot now, depending on how many outside linebacker spots there are. They might be in a battle. They might keep 5 outside linebackers, but if they keep 4, I think they're going to keep 5. So they would be able to keep Ola if they want to end Keon. But if they keep 4, it might be a battle. Then after that, the big battle going on for a starting job is inside linebacker. And like I said in a podcast like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I think we won't know who will be the starter until preseason week 3. So that's going to come down to the third preseason game. Do you think there's any battles left, or is it all figured out?
It's all minor stuff now. When it comes to the quarterbacks, we know that that's already been sorted out. No matter what Josh Dobbs does, I don't think the Steelers are keeping him at all. Let's put it this way. I don't think they're wishing for injury, but I think that if one were to happen, they'd do whatever they could to stash him on the PUP list. You know what I mean? Just get him for an extra 6 weeks, and then I don't know if they would plan on... Because I've heard other media members in Pittsburgh talking about them seeing if Mason Rudolph progresses at all in these next few weeks, that they could see about trading Landry Jones to a team that might have a quarterback injury early on, and then all of a sudden you roll with Rudolph and Dobbs as your backups, and maybe you could get a draft pick for Jones or something. What do you think about that?
That would be interesting. I mean, I was kind of hoping they traded one of them, but I mean, I doubt either is going to happen, to be honest. But we'll see.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to just lose one of these guys because Roethlisberger and Jones are obviously the veterans that know the team, and obviously Roethlisberger's not getting cut. Jones is the backup right now, but Dobbs shows some promise, at least as a potential backup possibly, and Rudolph looks like he could be someone with more potential, so he could be the heir apparent, if you will. So you don't want to get rid of all of those guys. But I mean, throughout the rest of the roster, I think it's just minor stuff like who is the starting inside linebacker, which I guess isn't really minor per se, but we already know who most of the starters on this team are, and like you said, it's battles for the last positions 47 through 53 on the roster. And besides the punter job and the inside linebacker job, I don't think there's any other starting positions up for grabs. I guess technically the third receiver is. So I guess who is leading that right now? Who is the number 3 receiver? It's not Justin Hunter, is it? Is it him? Is it Washington? It doesn't sound like it's Washington at the moment. I don't know who's there right now.
I'm just hoping it's Washington. I really don't know. They seem to like Justin Hunter. and that annoys me. But I hope it's James Washington.
Hopefully we see a lot more of that tomorrow, and we'll get a better idea. But I guess basically the point I've been trying to get across is the coaches know what they have in these players right now. So there's probably not a whole lot that's going to change, at least certainly not after tomorrow's game. I think once we get past tomorrow's game, the focus next week will be on the tune-up game, where they're just trying to get some consistency among the players, and it's like, all right, this is what we got now, this is what we're going with. And then we already know the fourth preseason game is just any last auditions for any of the last decisions that still need to be made. So that's how I think the rest of the roster breakdown is looking after tomorrow. But as far as the game tomorrow goes itself, Mike Tomlin announced that Landry Jones is not going to play in this upcoming preseason game, and with Roethlisberger hurt, that means just two quarterbacks. And with them being the young guys, you've got to be excited about that, right?
Yeah, Sunderland's going to be testing all their new additions and practice squad guys even further than they did last week. As last week they let some starters play for a bit, but as you said, it's only going to be Josh Dobbs and Mason Rudolph, and I'm going to be rooting for Dobbs heavy this game, like I did last week. I really want to see the Steelers somehow trade him off to someone for a 6th or 7th round pick, just to get a little value out of him. But there is some fear that if he really performs well, the Steelers just keep 4, and that would hurt me to waste 4 spots on a quarterback. I will hope that never happened. I saw a quote yesterday, and I couldn't find it, but Mike Tomlin said something about this. It said some teams keep 2, some teams keep 3. We might even keep 4. And I was like, oh no. I read that quote and was like, oh no, but I couldn't find it, so it could have been made up, and someone just made up a quote by Mike Tomlin. But anyway, as for Rudolph, I want to see more ball security from him in this game. He struggled with fumbles in college, and he had 2 fumbles in his first preseason game. So I'm hoping to see no fumbles in this game with more playing time. Probably a tough ask. As John pointed out to me, part of his fumbling problem is because he has small hands. So, I mean, it's going to be hard to fix something that you can't really just throw out your hands. It's not a mechanical issue. It's a physical issue. So it's probably a tough ask for him. But moving to receivers, I expect the starting receivers to be James Washington and Damone Patterson at the 1 and 2 spots, again, so the Steelers can see their new additions and see their really deep roster guys. And then probably Quandre Henderson at the number 3, at least to begin, just so they could see maybe. But I could see Marcus Tucker filling in for the spot at wide receiver 3 just to get him, see if he can get on the roster and stuff. Apart from those guys, I'm really hoping to see more Justin Hunter and maybe some Darius Hayward-Bay. At this point in time, it looks like the only catches Darius Hayward-Bay can make is body catches. Like, he can't just catch with his hands. He has to draw it into his body. So he is basically useless on a offense. It's not really, if you have to catch a ball by dragging it into your body, you're not going to be really targeted much because you're not that great of a catcher. But regardless, I think they need to prove that they need a roster spot. I really think that they need to play more. I think Hunter needs to play more because I'm really confused. I don't understand this team's love for Justin Hunter, and I think Darius Hayward-Bay might be in his last year because, I mean, now when he first came, he actually did contribute a little bit on offense, but now he's solely special teams, and he's really got to show some more to make it just as a special teams gunner or ace. But moving on to running back, I fully assume this is going to be the Samuels, Ridley, and Toussaint show, and also Jarvian Franklin. I forgot to say, write him down. And we will not see James Conner at all in this one. I'm mostly watching out for Samuels, though. He had a rough first game, in part to the offensive line not creating space for him. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do with more playing time and not at the end of the game. But moving to tight ends, I expect to not see any Jesse James for the most part. Instead, we'll see Farrell McKever and Christian Scotland Williamson getting the bulk of the snaps at this position. As for offensive line, I couldn't even begin to guess who's going to get most of the playing time and where. I really just expect a mess for this unit in terms of people playing in different positions. I think they're going to try Matt Filer at guard and tackle in this game, as they were doing in training camp. They were doing that a little bit. But, like, other than that, I really don't know. They might have to switch sides for guys just to see what's good. I don't even want to take a guess at what's really going to happen. But what do you think is going to happen in this game for the offense?
Well, we already talked about it. You already talked about it. The Mason Rudolph and Josh Dobbs show. And that's just what the doctor ordered. These guys should get as many reps as they possibly can. I'm excited to see them, and I'm hoping they play well. The question for me that I'm asking, I guess I'm asking myself and you, is who do you think gets the first half and who gets the second half? Because Dobbs got the third team, or I guess technically second team snaps last game. Do you think they'll switch it around this time? Let Rudolph play with the first and second teamers?
I think they might let Rudolph play with the first and second teamers. Yeah, they might switch it around. They might just mix it up. It might just be constantly revolving.
You know what? There's several ways the Steelers could do this. They could do first half Rudolph or Dobbs, and then the second half, they could go quarter by quarter, or they could go drive by drive. I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of want to see quarter by quarter.
I would want to see quarter by quarter too. I think I like that better.
And then I would like to have Rudolph start, and then Dobbs goes second and fourth quarter, and then Rudolph gets the third quarter too. I don't know if they'll do that. Go ahead.
You know what's interesting, though? They were in practice the other day. Both looked good in 2-minute drills. So if it switched every other quarter, you wouldn't be able to see one in their 2-minute drill, if I'm thinking that right. Josh Dobbs, Mason Rudolph, you would only get Mason Rudolph getting into, 2-minute situations if it got to that. So I actually kind of want them to do half and half now because they both really impressed on their 2-minute drills in camp yesterday.
Well, there is no guarantee that they would get hurry-ups at the end of the game, too, because the end of this past game, they were just doing everything they could to run out the clock. They were giving it to Samuels with half the Eagles roster on defense so that they could just run out the clock. There's no guarantee that he's going to run hurry-up offense. I do believe as well that Dobbs would probably look better just because he's been in the offense for a year, and the 2-minute offense, while it is simplified, it's also, I would have to think, then again, I don't know if Rudolph ran it necessarily. I don't know if he ran no huddle at Oklahoma State. I think that they did. I think they ran that pseudo spread where they don't really huddle up. They just kind of look at the sidelines. So maybe he has some experience. I don't know. Maybe the best way to do it would be just to have them run maybe a couple drives of no huddle. How about that?
I think that would be cool. I think that would make up for it. That sounds good for me.
I think that would be cool, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're just going to let them do their normal things unless if it's close to the end of the first half. But in any case, I was checking the injury report. There's several other players that are probably not going to play. Connor did return to practice with a groin injury, but he's questionable to play. I would just hold him out, to be honest with you. Stephen Ridley's also hurt, Austin. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't actually see that.
So I don't know about you, but I'm going to be excited because that means Toussaint's going to start, and then, I don't know, the second quarter, you can just throw in Samuels or whatever, and you can just let him, Franklin, and what's the other guy's name? Jarvian Franklin and James Summers, that's it. Just let those three young guys just get all the carries, let them get all the targets out of the backfield, throw Samuels in the slot and have Summers behind him or something like that in the backfield. Just get it mixed up back there. We already know what Fitzgerald Toussaint is. Let him play a quarter and let those three young running backs play with the young quarterback. I want to see that. Along the line, just keep your eye on Chukwuma Okorafor again, see how he progresses. I went back and watched the Steelers-Eagles preseason game again. That's not necessarily true. I watched the first 3 quarters before I had to give up on it because I was really bored. But from what I saw, it looked like he did actually a pretty good job for someone that was as raw as he was considered to be. But besides that, also keep an eye out for the reserve tight ends. The Steelers have, I think, 6 on their roster right now. What is there? There's James, McDonald, McKeever, Grimble, Hodges, and am I missing someone?
Scotland Williamson.
That's right. So there's a lot of reserve tight ends on the roster right now. And with there's probably no reason for Jesse James to really play in this game given McDonald's injury. Or if he does, he's not going to play long. And I think Grimble's banged up too. So this is going to be almost exclusively reserve tight ends. And I don't know which one sticks out most to you, but obviously I want to see Scotland Williamson a lot. And I want to see more Bucky Hodges because that would be kind of cool to see a player that you looked at last year possibly make this team, even though he's probably not going to, but it'd be cool to see him make an impact. I don't know if you saw he made a couple of nice plays as a blocker last week. It wasn't a nice play per se, but he was putting in some effort. And I know that's not a strong suit of his game.
I actually did not see that. I actually don't even know his number, unfortunately.
He is number 82. Number 82, yeah.
Oh, okay.
No,
Okay.
I didn't even mention the whole wide receiver thing. I don't know how that's going to break down necessarily, but I want to see more of those young guys. The guy I really want to see, we already talked about him, is James Washington. I want to see more of him because what I saw last week just left me wanting more. And as far as wanting more, I know you're in agreement with me in that we both want more from the defense, right?
Yeah. As a whole, they missed 18 tackles, and that needs to be fixed. I want it to be around 9 in this game, 9 or 10, and that's really not that much of an improvement. Missing 9 or 10 tackles is still a lot in the game, but it would be an improvement. It would cut it almost in half what they did last week. So they need to improve it before they leave preseason. That's the bottom line. In terms of individual play, I'm looking for more out of Terrell Edmonds, too. He didn't have a bad game last week, but he didn't have a great one either. I want to see him using his athletic ability to get himself into more plays. Last week he only had 3 tackles and no other stats. I want to see more than that. I want to see at least more tackles. But another guy I'm focused on in the game is Matthew Thomas. Thomas also did not light up the stat sheet, but what I saw from him on the stats he played was speed. The opposite of what Matakevich and Bostic showed. And if he could just add to the stat sheet a little more, he could possibly make the roster, since in terms of physical ability, he's closer to Shazier than Bostic and Matakevich are. After that, I'm really looking at the cornerback battle. With all the safeties the Steelers have, I think they're going to elect to have one less cornerback than they did last year, and it's going to leave Brian Allen fighting Cody Sensabaugh for his spot on the roster. Allen didn't get to play much in last week's game due to an injury, but this week I believe he's good to go. And he's going to need to show some more good things, since as of right now, he doesn't have a roster spot in my eyes. The last thing I want to say about an individual effort is I want to see something from Joshua Frazier. He didn't do anything memorable in last week's game, and I really had some hopes he could challenge McCullers for his spot before training camp started, but he needs to show something in this game. It's basically right now he's off the roster. It's just he's done because McCullers impressed and he's done nothing. So, I mean, I'm just hoping to see maybe something, one last fighting chance for him, but what do you have to say about the defense going into this game?
You already hammered it home, Austin. It's the tackling I'm most concerned and interested to see this upcoming game. I want to see better from the starting defense. Who gets to start at inside linebacker? The Steelers made it as confusing as it could possibly be last week. I don't know if you saw this, but they listed Matakevich the starter for the game, and then Bostic took the first snaps of the game, so technically he started the game. Then they had both of them on the field at the same time at periods during the game, so I have no idea what was going on there. I know that Matakevich didn't play as well, so I guess Bostic won that battle, but they did everything in their power to confuse me, and they succeeded. Hopefully this is a better game for both of those guys. I was kind of hoping that this would be the game Bostic starts to separate himself a little bit. We saw him make some plays, so I want to see a little bit more this week. Elsewhere, I really don't want to see Stephon Tuitt and Javon Hargrave get blown up again. They struggled early on against the Eagles, and especially in Tuitt's case, because the team's success on defense is really pivotal, or really his performance is pivotal for the defense's success this year. And in Hargrave's case, I mean, he played well into the second half last week, and that's not a good sign. I want this to be a much smoother week for him. Make some plays, just simplify it, and just don't get blown up either. And then that way, maybe we can see McCullers earlier, and then we can see guys like you mentioned, Josh Frazier and Greg Gilmore a little bit more, because they both played like 5 snaps last week, which is not anything to write home about. As far as the secondary goes, it's more the same for the DBs. You covered the Brian Allen, Cody Sensabaugh battle. I'm hoping to see the dollar defense, which we've heard a lot about, the 2-2-7, which they didn't use last week. So I'm hoping to see that for the first time this week. And I want to see more good performances from Olasunkanmi Adeni and Farrington Huguenin. Austin, is it at all possible, if the Steelers do keep 5 outside linebackers, that they keep Adeni and Huguenin over Adams? Because even though Adams is a draft pick, he was a 7th-round draft pick last season. Do you think if they keep 2 of those 3, who are they keeping?
I mean, it's whoever's going to do the best. It's not like Keon Adams was a high-round pick that he needs to stay on this roster to prove to just for value purposes to let him try and work out. He's a late-round pick. He's essentially an undrafted free agent, especially with how late the Steelers picked in the draft 2 years ago. It's like it's really, it could be anyone. If Huguenin makes it, I thought Huguenin was mostly an inside linebacker. I know I saw in the game that he played outside linebacker, but I could see them going with Huguenin. Huguenin laid a big hit, and I didn't know. I didn't know Huguenin's number until I saw him lay that hit. I was like, who was that? And that in that game, he laid someone out on one of the plays. So, I mean, maybe they do make it. Ola and Huguenin over Keon Adams. Because, I mean, it's not like Keon Adams there's not any money put into him. It's not like he needs to work out. So
this is one of those battles that probably is not going to be won by night. It's one of the few things that we could still be seeing that's fought out for the next 3 weeks, too. So that's one thing to really look out for. That's about it for defense, though. Oh, by the way, Austin, I was thinking about this earlier when you mentioned Darius Hayward-Bay. I looked up his stats. So with the Steelers, this is now his 4th season with the Pittsburgh. This is going to be his 5th season, assuming he makes the team. His first season with Pittsburgh, he caught 3 passes on 5 targets. So he wasn't. I know he was really like a big special teams contributor in 2014. 2015 was his big offensive year. He caught 21 passes, 2 touchdowns. I remember he had that long one against the Raiders or 49ers. And 2016 it went down to 6 catches, 2 touchdowns, and then last year he only had 3 targets, 2 catches for 47 yards. And I remember one of them was that it was the first play after that the Jesse James play, because Roethlisberger threw it to him, and he's the one that got tackled inbounds, which led to the interception in the end zone. So that was half of his receptions from last year.
You also have to remember one of them was from Robert Golden on a special teams play.
That's right. So both
as well.
So he had that 44-yard catch from Robert Golden. So that's what it was. I remember he had the big play, but I was like, who threw him the ball? Well, it was a safety, and then he had another catch for 3 yards. So his ability as a receiver, it looks like it's deteriorating, and it's only going to get worse. So I have to think that if he's going to make the team, he's going to be he's 31 right now, that this would be his last year with the team, no?
Yeah, I think this is. If he might not even make it for this roster. He might not make it for this year.
I mean, you think about it, he's been a bigger impact as a runner probably the last 2 years than he has been a receiver. Because he's had a rushing touchdown.
He's done are pretty crazy, like the one against the Dolphins 2 years ago.
Yeah, that was a 60-yarder, and then he had one against the Browns this year. Maybe it's almost better to have him as an offensive weapon as a runner, because he doesn't have the best hands, but he still has those jets. But I guess how much longer is he going to have them too? So, anyways, back to special teams, which I guess is really more up DHB's alley, but I guess what do we really need to watch for here? There's probably not too much to see here.
I just want to see Quadri Henderson get more than one attempted punt return or a kick return. He only got one attempted, and he didn't gain any yards on it from last game. Because right now, like, he's totally off the roster. He might be the first one cut because he's not doing anything. I was reading about something. He only got 20 snaps of offense in training camp. That was in training camp. So they don't even believe in him there. So I almost am worried about this game, about him getting any snaps on offense. I think he's just basically off the roster at this point. I don't even know if he returned 2 touchdowns in this game. I'm not even sure he can make this roster at this point. So, I mean, but I'm going to be watching for it anyway. He needs to at least show something if he wants to make it. That's really all I have to say about special teams. What do you have to say?
If you're the Steelers coaching staff, what's it going to take? Is it going to take 2 touchdowns per game for the rest of the preseason? Would that make you say, all right, we have to keep this dude? If he scores like 4 return touchdowns in the next 3 games, like what's the magic number here? Because that's the only way he makes it.
I think 4 return touchdowns would actually do it. I think if he could get 2 this game and then 1 in each of the other 2, I think that might be enough to say, okay, you know what, maybe this guy is worth it on special teams, so give him a roster spot.
If you do that, there's no way you're keeping 4 quarterbacks, though, for sure.
Nope.
So
no way.
Very interesting. But, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't. If he's getting that little of a look on offense, why'd they even bring him in?
I don't know. I do not know at all, to be honest. It doesn't seem worth it, at all.
I don't get it, but then again, whatever. But yeah, as far as special teams go, besides that, there's not much to talk about. You just have to keep tabs on the punter battle between Jordan Berry and Matt Weil. We already talked about it. Weil had a better average yards per punt, but Berry had a perfect punt that resulted in a downing at the 1 yard line. So I think we can call week 1 a draw, which means it'll go to Berry because he's the incumbent punter. So Weil's going to need a decisive win or two to get the job. So keep an eye on that. Keys to the game, Austin. I guess it's more so just what's the most important thing to see from the offense this week because it's not so much about winning this game.
Well, for offense, it's going to be playing all the roster bubble wide receivers in this game to see what they're all capable of. That includes Darius Hayward-Bay, Justin Hunter, Damone Patterson, Trey Griffey, and Tevin Jones. I want the game to be focused on what the Steelers are taking with them this year. I want this game to be the deciding factor. All right, we now know who we want to have as our wide receivers. Also, Quadri Henderson, but probably not going to get much offensive snaps. What is your offensive key to the game?
Air it out. I think that that was pretty similar to last week's, but more emphasis on it this week. The Steelers are only going with Rudolph and Dobbs at quarterback this week. Let them both throw around 20 passes. I want to see them running 3-step drops, 5-step drops, 7-step drops, the works. It's an open range this week. Just let it rip and show us what you got. What about on defense?
Well, I know the Matakevich-Bostic battle is going strong, but let Matthew Thomas play quietly next to them in Vince Williams' spot. I want to see him playing more and see what he can do after last game where we were disappointed by Bostic and Matakevich. This is his best chance to make a statement that he can make the roster, where he can get some time after both the other inside linebackers starting for a starting spot are they're fighting, and they're lower in my mind at least. What is your key to the defense?
My key for the defense is just make the tackle. We already talked about this one a lot, but the biggest difference this year could potentially be how good the Steelers are at tackling and not missing tackles. I want to see an improvement, particularly from Morgan Burnett and John Bostic, who uncharacteristically missed a tackle both on the same play. But really, I just want to see better overall play from the starting unit, too. In that line, X Factor. Who is your X Factor on offense and defense? Just give them both to me.
Sure. I feel like it's cliche to pick a quarterback, but I'm going to do it anyway and going with Josh Dobbs. If Dobbs can continue building on last week's performance and do it even better, it's going to make it hard for the Steelers to just flat out cut him. It would also be the best time to trade him following this game, as he would still have a few weeks to learn another team's system before the season starts and maybe even get playing time in another team's last preseason game. But that's for offense. For defense, it's pretty obvious for me. My X factor is going to be Matthew Thomas. As I said before, this is his best opportunity to show that the team showed to the Steelers that he deserves a roster spot, while Bostic and Matakevich both disappointed last week. So this is his chance. Who are your X factors going into this game?
My X factors are on offense. Wide receiver Damone Patterson. Last week he had a coming out party. He made big plays on offense and had a huge touchdown reception. It was reminiscent of the way Mike Hilton was making big plays on defense in last year's preseason, but it was only one game. Hilton did it in every preseason game last year. If Patterson wants to make the roster, he's going to need another good performance on offense along with more solid play from special teams. He's still a long shot to make the team, but he's got a chance. And on defense, you already talked about him earlier, but Brian Allen, he's one of the defensive backs on the bubble. A guy that showed a lot of potential and was kind of a surprise to make the team last year, but he did, and he was a special teams contributor. The coaches seem to like the direction he's heading in, but the question is, how much patience do the coaches have with him? Because Sensabaugh is a better player now, most likely, than Allen is, but would they rather have Allen because he could make a big jump next year, or because they think he might make a big jump this year? I don't know. It's really a question, and the Steelers only have so many roster spots to give these cornerbacks. So this will be an important game coming up for Brian Allen. All right, let's move on to the bold predictions.
Sure. So opposite of what I predicted for Dobbs last week, this week he throws 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and for over 120 yards. Then for the second one, Matthew Thomas gets 2 sacks and a forced fumble to go along with 5 tackles in this game. I think Matthew Thomas is going to go big here. And this one's a weird one. I don't think I've ever made this kind of bold prediction, but this game is going to have 11 total touchdowns between the two teams. That's a lot of points to put up in a game. So what are your bold predictions for this game?
I think that Jalen Samuels gets a lot of time playing this week. I already talked about Connor and Ridley being banged up, and I think he makes the most of it. I think he puts up 2 touchdowns, 1 on the ground and 1 through the air, and he has a total of 130 yards, 80 of them coming from the ground and roughly 50 through the air. My second is that I think Mason Rudolph is going to have more trouble with ball security, more so as far as holding onto the ball. I think he's going to get sacked 3 times, and he's going to fumble it another 2 more times. It's like you said, it's a problem he had in college, and that's not something that's probably going to change, at least not a lot early on. Give him some time to sort of work on that. We talked about it being more so a physical disadvantage than anything else. And last but not least, I think Terrell Edmonds is going to have his first career interception in this game. He had kind of a quiet first game last week. He wasn't bad per se, but he also didn't do a lot, and I think he'll get his first interception this week. All right, so you mentioned it being a high-scoring game, so what do you think is the final score of this one?
I think it's going to be 41-38 with the Packers winning in a high-scoring affair, and it's going to be 41 from a failed 2-point attempt, missed PAT. I counted how many touchdowns it was. This is 11 touchdowns. Don't tell me I'm wrong. What is your final score prediction?
Well, a week ago I said the Steelers typically lose preseason games under Mike Tomlin, but I guess really the trend has been reversed. The Steelers are now 4-1 in their last 5 preseason games, so I'll just go with the Steelers winning this one 27-17. Although you think about it, it would make more sense that they'd lose this game since they're not going to get any playing time from their number 1 or 2 quarterbacks, but whatever, it's the preseason. So I'll pick the Steelers beating the Packers 27-17 out in Lambeau Field. NFL news to get to. Before we get to what we have written down, Austin, just an interesting thing to talk about with the whole Landry Jones potentially someone that could be on trade watch in the next few weeks. John Elway just said that the Broncos could be looking for a veteran backup at quarterback. Interesting.
I actually saw that. I didn't even think of that. That would be. They might actually pay for Landry Jones. Landry Jones is a solid backup. He's one of the top backups in the league in terms of how well he can play when he comes in. I mean, he's not a starter, but one of the top backups, again.
Yeah, Jones has played in, I think, 18 or 19 career games, and he started 5. So, he has experience, and he clearly has shown good command of the offense. Right now, that quarterback room in Denver isn't great. They have Case Keenum, who's coming off a pretty good year. They have Jim Kelly's nephew, Chad Kelly, who's not, thought of to be as good of a player, obviously. And he's at the number 2, and that leaves demoted Paxton Lynch, the former first-round draft pick, who's all the way down there at the number 3 quarterback. So it looks like they could be looking for a shakeup, and perhaps Jones could be that shakeup. I'm not saying anything's going to happen or that the Steelers would even be entertaining the idea of trading him, but who knows? It's something to think about now. What would you put the percentages on of that happening?
A Jones trade to the Broncos or just a Jones trade?
Let's go with both.
Okay, on a Jones trade, I'm thinking about 30%. On a Jones trade to the Broncos, I'm thinking about 10%. Because I think they love Landry, and Landry shows poise. When he comes in, he understands the system. You saw what he did last week with the same thing Roethlisberger does when he uses the count, and when they come off sides, and he knows to throw it up. He knows exactly what to do in the system. I don't have a high percentage on him getting traded, and then going to a specific team, that's rough. So I give it a 10% first, go to the Broncos, 30% to get traded, only because he has more value than Josh Dobbs in my eyes. I think at a best potential, you could get a 4th-round pick for Landry. For Josh, I think the best you could get is a 6th. That might be the only reason why they would trade Landry Jones. So, what do you think? What are the percentages?
I think it's 85, 90, and then 90, let me reverse that. 15 to 10 and then 5 to 10. It's very unlikely. We already talked about it. He's Roethlisberger's backup. Roethlisberger likes him. He trusts him. He knows the offense. He knows the plays that are being called, and he's a familiar face there. And I don't think that's someone the Steelers are really that willing to trade away. So it would have to be kind of something that would blow them away. I don't even know what you would ask for Landry Jones, but I couldn't imagine you would be able to get all that much for him. So I think it's unlikely. You also mentioned that Seattle's first-round pick, Rashad Penny, the running back, is out for potentially up to a month after getting surgery on his pointer finger. So you'd be talking about him maybe missing a game or two. And is that going to matter at all for the Seahawks? It wasn't like he was going to run it all anyways. He'd be stuffed at the line on every play.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really going to matter. They decided to pick a running back with their first overall pick and let their linemen still suffer and Russell Wilson still suffer. So I really don't think it makes a big difference if he doesn't play game one.
Absolutely. And last but not least, I know we both saw this, the comments that Jalen Ramsey, the Jaguars cornerback, made about a bunch of different quarterbacks that he has played over the years, and I think maybe even a couple that he didn't play against. But you want to break that down for us?
Yeah, some of the highlights are for Tom Brady, he does not suck. Matt Ryan, overrated. Joe Flacco sucks. I played him 2 years in a row. He sucks, and that makes me giggle. Big Ben, decent. It's not Big Ben, it's Antonio Brown. Big Ben slings the ball a lot of the time. He just slings it, and his receivers go get it. I played him twice last year, and he really disappointed me. Andrew Luck, I don't really think he's that good. And for Marcus Mariota, he actually said that he's a good for his team. He actually gave positive notes from Marcus Mariota, which surprised me because he did every single quarterback, but not all of them are like in the reports. Some of the reports only kept some of the funnier ones. But yeah, what do you think of some of these comments?
Well, I mean, he's just doing it to get attention. I mean, you can just tell that's kind of what he's done in the past anyways. He's kind of a loudmouth, if you will. But I mean, he's kind of spot on with some of them, but it's kind of funny because NFL Research also posted like the stats that the quarterbacks he mentioned do against him. And I know that Andrew Luck has had injuries, but he's like, I don't think he's really that good. And he's got like a perfect passer rating against Jalen Ramsey, which I know that's an isolated thing, but it's just kind of funny. It's something to talk about in the middle of the preseason. That's really all there is to it.
Yeah, he also said Russell Wilson was like a great player and a great leader, and against Russell Wilson had a 2.8 quarterback rating, like, and that goes up to 158. Like, that's terrible, and he commended Russell Wilson. So I mean, who knows what's going on in Ramsey's head?
Yeah, whatever. And that, I know I told you, but it would be like, what if someone like Mariota, who beat the Jaguars twice last year, Tom Brady said, which they wouldn't, but like, what if they said, oh, I think Jalen's decent, but he just plays in front of a great front seven or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's drama. It's nonsense. Yep. So, all right. Well, with that being the case, I think we're ready to wrap this one up. Steelers play at 8 o'clock on Thursday. Only 3 games on Thursday, where last week most of the games were on Thursday. You've got a Super Bowl 52 rematch at 7:30. Eagles and Patriots. You got Jets and Redskins at 8 o'clock. Poor Darius Geis. Still feel bad for him. He's out for the season. And then the Steelers game at 8. And then most of the games are Friday and Saturday. I believe there's a Monday night game this week. There is. It's the Ravens at the Colts. So, again, no games on Sunday, but one game on Monday night. I don't know why there's a Monday night football game in the preseason, but hey, I'll entertain it. I might watch like 5 minutes of it. We'll see. So, all right, you all set to wrap this one up?
I am ready.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions about the show, email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com and check out our website, strongerthansteelnfl.blogspot.com. You can find our episodes on YouTube, SoundCloud, and iTunes, as well as our website. Thank you so much and have a terrific day.
Have a good day.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.